The books for today's video are all about the workplace's darkly ironic disorder. We all have to have jobs, and if you're going to do it for any amount of time, you've likely had an existential moment. What am I doing here? What is my purpose? Is a better job out there? Is Tony going bald? Our 7 novels up for discussion in this episode all use the backdrop of the modern workplace to cast an ominous, chaotic, and sometimes darkly comedic lens on what it means to have a job in this economy. In each of these books, you're likely to find a critique that alarmingly reflects or outlines your own experiences. Or you may just find solace and camaraderie in a caustic vision of today's capitalist hellscape. If you work, you'll find something in these books to help you cynically get through another shift. Because you've now entered the zone of the workplace Gothic, where disorder reigns. Up is down. Down is up, left is diagonal, and that's just your regular workday. In the workplace Gothic, the subject of this video, the institution not only exploits workers, it contorts reality itself. Work is a haunted place where your identity is subsumed, your memory is sold to dysfunctional subcontractors, and your compliance is forced. Not by violence, but by the slow horror of mandated routine. Let's take a look at the 7 novels that make up this episode's journey. Stay tuned until the very end, and I'll give you a quick note on which of these novels I actually liked. But first, what is Workplace Gothic, that thing that I mentioned earlier? And how will it apply to our 7 novels? Well, first of all, it can be a lens or a theme with which we look at books. Elements of the workplace Gothic have been discussed in the past, but it's never quite made it into official subgenre status. This is actually my own invention. I've cobbled together this lens from elements of Gothic literature and, frankly, the current disapproval ratings on the job market. People are not having a great time in or out of employment right now. Given that pessimism has taken hold, popular cynicisms, as shown in this literature we're going to discuss, reflect a vision of the job market not as a location for ambition, but as an institution that actually subverts it. The general feelings around work, therefore, have really given rise to darkly ironic images of disorder in literature and culture abroad. Think the Severance show. The definition of Gothic that I'm using comes from an excellent Substack article entitled Defining Gothic, and it's by Rebecca Marks of The Culture Dump. In it, she says the word was first used as a pejorative by Renaissance scholars. Cultural expressions during the period seem to really prize classical ideas, Greek, Roman, things like that. And these classical ideas valued order and harmony. Think about classical architecture, for example, which is characterized by precise geometry, linear, proportioned, and even mathematical. On the other hand, Gothic was originally the name for the Germanic tribes who migrated through Europe and ultimately invaded and sacked Rome several times. For Renaissance thinkers, these Gothic tribes represented barbarism, superstition, mystery, regression, and, of course, disorder. Ultimately, they were believed to be responsible for the end of the classical era. So Gothic was conceived as opposite classical order and harmony. So, in many Gothic tales, their dark references describe a supernatural or even unpredictable world that defies moral convention. And over the course of the 18th century and 19th centuries, these stories and styles grew in popularity to become what we call Gothic. As a theme for this episode, workplace Gothic therefore bends towards stories with sinister intent, devolved circumstances, and or supernatural adjacent premises. Ironically, with an economy like ours that professes to value order, routine, and efficiency, the workplace's push for compliance and conformity actually subverts and inverts the very standards it claims to prize. So, what are the characteristics of this genre? Early versions of this form include, first, a story that people either love or hate, and that is Herman Melville's story, Bartleby the Scrivener. The story has a repetitive phrase uttered by its main character that hardly anybody forgets once they read it. Bartleby says, I prefer not to. The narrator, on the other hand, is a lawyer who, needing another copyist, hires Bartleby as a scrivener. While his work is initially good, the lawyer begins to make requests of the new scribe. But in response, Bartleby responds each time with, I prefer not to. The character's behavior devolves into ridiculous lengths. He refuses to do any work, but unable to remove him from the office, the lawyer slash narrator allows him to stay. And eventually, Bartleby begins to live in the office. The lawyer finds he has to move his office in order to avoid a scrivener. And soon, Bartleby's loitering in the old building gets him arrested for vagrancy. He serves a prison sentence, but after he's released, the lawyer finds that he's been sleeping outside of the prison in the park, and he discovers Bartleby is dead. Sad end for Bartleby. At the end of the story, the lawyer tells the reader a rumor that Bartleby once worked at the dead letter office. And he thinks this experience absolutely must have led to his break from reality. The story seems to be Melville's critique of his era's bureaucratic office work, and really its dehumanization even at the time of its workers. It's interesting that even back in the 19th century, people were thinking similarly about the modern workplace. As observed in Masaomi Kobayashi's article, Bartleby's Gothicizing has another connection in Franz Kafka's work. Now, I'll tell you that I'm underread on Kafka. So, for those of you who have read more Kafka, what do you think about that? Is it like Bartleby? Does he have novels that approach this workplace Gothic? Leave your comments below. I'd like to hear from you. The first official book on our list is Severance by Ling Ma. After seeing her book largely take place in the Midwest, I investigated and learned that Ma is from Chicago. Good pedigree. Also, before we get to it, I know what you're thinking. No, the book is not the same story as the show Severance. But I'll say that the book came out earlier than the popular Apple TV show, for what that's worth. This book is a variation on the post apocalyptic zombie story. It's broken into three timelines. Candace, the main character, recounts her life before something called Shen fever that turns people mindless. She's a publisher and she's made her career, funnily enough, on producing really fancy bejeweled Bibles. Then another timeline follows her life as the world slowly collapses around her. She's one of the last inhabitants eventually of Manhattan. But she continues to work on her Bible production through the end of the world. That is, until she's told to stop by a mysterious call, and then everyone goes silent. But she receives a bonus from the managing office eventually. Good for her. Finally, the present timeline is post collapse. Candace takes up with a group of survivors who appear fairly normal, but their one quirk is that they have self patterned themselves habitually on corporate hierarchy. The novel's dark humor is based on ironic parallels like these between working and post apocalyptic life. To be sure, this is not traditionally a funny book, but its various comparisons will probably make you laugh. They may seem all too familiar. Those infected with Shen fever are zombie like, but they're not the violent, cannibalistic kind of zombies. Instead, these infected slowly devolve into the same repetitive daily tasks as the regular life. In one scene, for example, the survivors witness someone waking up to an alarm and begin to fix breakfast, as if kind of getting ready for work. When they try to talk to this person, the infected person really has no awareness of their surroundings or of the interaction that's being attempted. The survivors observe another woman thumb through a fashion magazine. She tries on clothes, and then they see her watch herself, observe herself in a full length mirror, as if trying on clothes like she did in her old life. The infected's routines bear very close, uncomfortable resemblance to Candace's old life and also her survivalist group's own close attention to meetings, procedure, and other corporate structures. While humorous in parts, the novel grows dark and shows that civilization really has always been breaking at the seams. As all three timelines reach a climax, we see that Candace's own identity is being gradually overwritten by her participation in the various society's institutions. Ultimately, the starkest contract in the book is between social demands and the dehumanization required by these same institutions. Candace's own livelihoods in each timeline have been subsumed under a Gothic canvas of dread, disorder, and personal loss. The next novel, Zone 1 by Colson Whitehead, has some close parallels to Ma's Severance. In addition to similar zombie genre conventions, it honors many of the same Gothic workplace elements as Ma's novel. Whitehead's Zone 1 has more dangerous zombies. They're called skells. They are the cannibalistic kind. But this world also has zombies nicknamed stragglers. The stragglers, like the Shen fevered, are stuck in the same loops as their past routines. The main character is called Mark Spitz by his teammates. Yes, like the Olympian. However, much of the book's narrative steps away from Spitz's personal story, and it tends to focus on broader civilization level meditations. The occasional eagle eyes view of the remaining world enables Whitehead to make a social critique. The present tense narrative occurs over 3 days when Mark Spitz and his amateur paramilitary team are ordered into Zone 1 or Manhattan, and they're ordered to take the island back. The leadership in Buffalo, New York, of all places, treats the island clearing as a job, and their tasks begin to take on this bureaucratic weight with performance memos, restoring of commercial properties, and many other trappings of corporate structure. However, all of this attention to economy and rebuilding ignores the patterns of lingering catastrophe. Mark Spitz, for example, is one of a majority percentage of survivors who's diagnosed with a post traumatic disorder that often leaves him and others who have it incapacitated. The novel's casual attention to routine and bureaucracy allows these sorts of severe observations to go mostly unnoticed. But what has occurred never stays dormant for long. The novel's attentions to chaos, horror, and routine offer a main critique of persistent organizing realities like the workplace. But its focus is slightly broader than Severance. Nevertheless, it similarly employs Gothic elements in a sharp analysis of modern life, particularly as it relates to routine and institutionalization. Many of these novels share, at times, a cynically dark sense of humor. The Other Black Girl by Zakiya Dalila Harris definitely demonstrates this affinity. I'm going to avoid spoilers for this one, but because of this, there may be some gaps in the analysis. Quick note, I'm going to share an annoyance with you. Not about the book, but about the marketing. I had such a difficult time finding a cover with that annoying Hulu advertisement for the show. The book, as a general rule, is almost always better than the screen version. But the stamp, Hulu, Netflix, Oprah, or major motion picture, unfortunately linger on the book long after the show or the movie has faded. Do these printed stamps annoy anybody else? But I digress. Back to the story. The Other Black Girl is a psychological thriller with a heavy dose of social satire. It follows Nella Rogers, an editorial assistant in a big publishing house called Wagner Books. At the beginning of the novel, she reveals her frustration with the many indignities of being a Black woman in a predominantly white workplace. Despite being in a liberal institution, her bosses often reduce her identity to a series of Black urban stereotypes, or they otherwise subtly silence her voice on particularly issues of race. The office dynamic changes when another Black woman, called Hazel May, joins the editorial staff. While Nella is the senior staff member, Hazel quickly begins to impress the management and also supersede Nella's seniority. But something isn't right with the new hire, and Nella's suspicions soon turn toward a broader conspiracy that involves both women and their publishing house. In one scene, for example, Hazel vocally but indirectly criticizes Nella's editorial choices during a meeting. This embarrasses Nella, and it also undermines her position in the company. Hazel's criticisms go like this throughout the book. They are passive aggressive, so Nella is never quite certain about Hazel's intent. But the result is always the slow subversion and undermining of her credibility. Nella thinks Hazel's purpose may actually be to target the other Black woman in the office. And guess what? It actually is. Because as the horror goes, there can only be one Black woman in the office. But Nella, she never knows quite why. Why is this the case? And this is the novel's central mystery. Another key theme is compliance. Nella feels constant pressure even before Hazel gets there to give up her identity as the cost of success. This broader question poses the risks of Black women's career success. Can success only be achieved if Black women succumb to self erasure? The novel incorporates other genre elements like science fiction to deepen the plot's metaphor, which ultimately grants the book additional flexibility to introduce some unexpected culprits for the pressure campaign against Nella. The very light science fiction elements bring some humor to the story, but I was surprised by how cynical and pessimistic this made Harris's work. And I don't say that as a criticism. Quite the opposite. It's a strength. Harris employs common racial and cultural anxieties to illuminate the workplace, not as a site for self fulfillment, but as a Gothic trap, where the primary choice for Nella's ambition is her mind. The Other Black Girl is ultimately a dark tale that critiques the modern workplace's inclination to enforce compliance and erasure, especially for Black women. The first inspiration for the topic, workplace Gothic, was my reading of a book called Moderation by Elaine Castillo. This book came out last year, and if I recall, it was one of the most anticipated releases of 2025 by several publications. This included the New York Times and the Washington Post. Castillo's work is a very future leaning examination of something called platform labor. This is actually the first time I'd heard of that particular term, but most of us probably know it already. It's the labor behind popular apps like DoorDash, Uber, online video games, social media, etc. This labor turns its primary employees into almost invisible independent contractors. Or should I say, independent contractors? As we become more aware in the news, platform labor enables companies to largely avoid typical employment responsibilities like, worker welfare, hour limits, protections, and generally the whole suite of federal and state labor laws meant to make work safe. The main character, simply known as Girly, is a member of the Filipino American community in Las Vegas's burgeoning entertainment industry. Her primary job is to moderate content for a local online VR company, that is virtual reality. Her biggest super ability and pride, really, is her ability to withstand even the most horrendous online content on her platform. It's her responsibility, along with other predominantly Filipina colleagues, to protect the public from such disturbing social posts. Gurley notes that immigrants are the only people strong enough to remain in this job because they have the greater imperative and, frankly, need for physical survival in America, which necessitates the strength to moderate the worst expressions of American society. Gurley's work gets recognized by corporate management, and she's offered a position in her company's newest venture, fully immersive virtual reality. This means sight, smell, touch, hearing, everything is involved in this immersion. During the negotiations for the new job, she meets one of the technology's founders, and they strike up a mutual affinity, which instigates a subplot around their growing romantic interest. This romantic aspect of the novel also suggests that a primary out in the current economy might actually be human contact. But as Gurley spends more time in her new job, she's exposed to the new technology's surprising effects. She discovers that not only can the immersive system traumatize users, but the full sensory elements have an opportunity to scar one's psyche beyond anything ever invented. Because of this level of physical and psychological immersion, the technology can also rewire the human brain in surprisingly effective ways. It was initially invented for psychological wellness. This is also its main problem because it sends her on an exploration about her parent company's true intentions. If the technology is that effective at altering minds, how can it be used beyond entertainment? The book shares interesting commonalities with The Other Black Girl. It shows, both of them, the incompatibility between human identity and the modern workplace. And more so, it examines the unsustainability of our current technological development in a world supposedly meant for us humans. Too often, ambitions to support technological progress undermine this intent. The novel's primary horror, then, is the impact of our current social and technological trajectories. Who actually is this progress meant to benefit? And why does progress inevitably profit a few rather than enrich the lives and welfare of many? Taking these questions to their logical and extreme conclusions, Castillo offers a glimpse into a dark and disordered work future. Its Gothic elements offer a pointed criticism of the progressive dehumanization within the present and the future workplace. The next two novels are workplace Gothic adjacent. They include significant plot elements about the nature of institutions and employment, but they venture into other subjects that make them less successful candidates for this episode's theme. Why did I include them? Well, I think that they call attention to a broader trend, a representation and aesthetic within literature itself that uses aspects of the workplace Gothic to shape significant subplots within a lot of our books. Novels don't have to directly address Gothic or labor themes to be influenced by this trend, as these novels show. Bora Chung's Midnight Timetable is difficult to describe, but I'm going to try. It's a novel in short stories, which means that each story forms a cohesive connection to a common plot and setting. It follows night shift workers at an institution that keeps haunted artifacts. And, by the way, this institution may or may not actually exist because it may or may not be a manifestation of the night shift workers' psyches. I classify the book as science fiction horror hallucination, where employees are often caught in impossible positions between administrative orders and the creepy happenings around the building. Chung's novel employs elements of the uncanny to parallel concerns about purpose and intent in the modern workplace. It's clear, for example, that administration does not have an understanding of events at the institution, or really their connection to this kind of broader plot that's developing. This gives each character's job a frightening sense of purposelessness. Yet, because the pay is good and the job is stable, these workers endure each unsettling mystery as they come. The novel in short stories emphasizes a disconnection between the workers and their labor and expresses mystery in the broader purposes of their actions and of their job. Its many Gothic elements crystallize the horrors of global modern employment. Piranesi by Susanna Clarke is another book with a loose connection to workplace literature. However, its main conceit offers an interpretation of routine and wandering disconnection that actually closely parallels similar concepts in our other books. The book is an abstract fantasy about a man known in the beginning as Piranesi, who goes about his days in a vast house set, possibly, in an alternate dimension. This place is the only thing that Piranesi knows and seems to have known. He spends his time conducting scientific studies of the house's weather systems and patterns, cataloging the classical statuary and architecture, as well as mapping its many mysteries and infinite halls. He also has occasional meetings with the only other human he calls the other. Like Midnight Timetable, this book expresses a broader aimlessness in the tasks that define its main character. But Piranesi finds some peace and solace in that role. That is, serving the house is Piranesi's circular purpose, and that clear line of logic frames his days. But he also can't seem to recall anything else about his life, and that's kind of a problem. There is a certain purity to the house and also Piranesi that becomes clearer as the central mystery unravels. There can be a certain comfort in, as workplaces do in these other books, replacing reality itself. For Piranesi, this ultimate outlook is both reassuring and perhaps for readers, understandably profoundly unsettling. This book also harkens back to the original definition of Gothic. The house's halls and decor are classical, but in their depiction, their degradation and collapse take on disorder, typical of Gothic themes. The final book came so close to winning several prizes over the last year. It was nominated for the Edgar Allan Poe Award, long listed for the Women's Prize for Fiction, and again, if I recall correctly, it was in the conversation for several other prestigious awards. The book is The Dream Hotel by Leila Lalami. This book is absolutely creepy, yet it has no literal ghosts or monsters. Instead, it swaps prison guards for monsters, institutional imprisonment for atmosphere, and stolen dreams for its ultimate darkness. Like Castillo's moderation, it takes current social and corporate trends and bends them to their logical ends. The main character is Sarah Hussein, a Moroccan American who gets stopped with her husband and kids at the airport. Her husband and kids eventually make it through security, but she's escorted into a room where her months of terror begin. In this world, everyone receives what's called a threat score, which is calculated from various personal and public data collected. Sarah is also one of millions who signed up for a miracle cure for their insomnia, only to have their dreams recorded, stored, and added to their score. Dreaming about crimes is enough to drive up a person's score. And when it's high enough, these people get placed in a watch facility to keep them and their loved ones safe, or so they're told. Despite being labeled guests and not calling it a prison, the facility to which she is taken is awfully like a prison. Sarah and other women are subject to constant surveillance, even in their dreams. And infractions are added to the record by trigger happy, profiteering guards. They are also compelled to voluntary work to maintain a favorable equilibrium to their score. That is, they are told work is a choice, but choosing not to work also raises their security score and prolongs their captivity in the guest house. The facility is run by a conglomeration of different corporate interests who run up a bill on each interaction credited to the women, the guests. So the incentive is to keep their score high and the money flowing rather than their release. This institution not only controls what the women do, but what they can dream and what they can think. The novel turns the fantasy of law, order, and safety on its head. Instead, this institution and these values are politicized in the media, and they become the ultimate justification for containment, compliance, invasion, and horror. Ending on this novel is fitting because it offers the fullest realization of the workplace Gothic and escalates it to a logical climax. Its primary theme is really about the exploitation of so called order to enable financial, personal, and data extraction. Reading books gives us a window into novels' contemporary concerns. In these seven recent novels, and Bartleby the Scrivener, cynical stories give voice to the mounting concerns around what it means to be employed today. The Gothic elements specifically speak to fears that people's lives are no longer under their control, and that in exchange for a wage, we may be surrendering something larger, our minds and reality itself. While modern businesses outwardly communicate order and efficiency, the workplace Gothic exposes themes around dehumanization and disorder. These novels haunt their readers and suggest a present and future where a job replaces reality with its own logic. The broader questions are whether we, like Candace, Nella, Gurley, and Sarah, already live in these haunted institutions of these nightmares. Okay, hold on one second. I promised a quick assessment of these books. I didn't want to incorporate this into the analyses itself to mix things up. My favorite novels were actually Severance, Zone 1, The Other Black Girl, and Piranesi. I enjoyed the other three, to be sure. Moderation was slow at points, which kept it really out of the top selections, but it does have remarkable moments that'll make you absolutely shiver, perhaps even give you nightmares. So, I had some concerns recently and I was unable to physically read, so I tried to listen to a few audiobooks. I chose ultimately the first one, The Dream Hotel, which actually may have spoiled it a bit. It's not what I should have chosen for that particular moment because there is a claustrophobic feeling to it. Eventually, I read The Dream Hotel on ebook, and I can tell you that it's phenomenal, but it does have some slow spots. However, how can I complain? Because this does seem fitting for a story about being captive. I had some trouble connecting with Midnight Timetable because it had cultural references that I didn't understand. They were lost on me. But that's on me. The easiest read was The Other Black Girl because it was a fairly straightforward plot, linear, all those things. As you may have noticed, I'm a white guy and I may not be considered the primary audience for this book, but I'm so glad I picked it up so I can learn more about perspectives outside my own. I felt Harris's realization of racial anxieties to be really enlightening. And frankly, learning about people's stories is the ultimate realization of literature. All right, that's it. You've been here long enough. You aren't stuck here anymore. Go enjoy your freedom. This has been Tilting at Tomes. As always, I'm Ben.